The term bread and butter judo was first told to me by my great friend and one of the best coaches who ever lived, Bob Corwin from Yorkville, Illinois. Real quick bio on Bob. He is a judo master. He's excellent at judo. He was a longtime coach. He's coached many national, international judo champions and a lot of successful people in the small town of Yorkville, Illinois, just southwest of Chicago. He, for many years, was a leading force in all levels of judo, whether it be junior, high school, collegiate, senior levels of judo. Fabulous coach, one of the best coaches I've ever met, and a great friend and a personal mentor of mine. So I learned this concept of bread and butter judo from Bob Corwin many, many years ago in one of the many training camps or trips. I don't know where I picked it up first from him, but and we had a lot of discussions about it. So a lot I'm going to tell you here is pretty much what Bob told me, and I've added a few things, but it's almost directly from the horse's mouth from Bob Corwin here, so all credit to him. First of all, bread and butter judo is basically that. It's the staple of judo. It's the staple skills of judo. The fundamentals, the basics. The basics always work. Remember that phrase, the basics do always work. A lot of people try to get ahead of themselves. They try to skip over the basics. You can't do that. In fact, most of your practice time, when you show up wherever your dojo, gym, wherever you train, should be spent on drilling on a lot of the basic fundamental skills. Then you can add on to the things that work best for you, but don't jump ahead. Fundamentals are important. They're essential. So that's what the bread and butter phrase comes from when Bob talks about. So the fundamentals are vital, okay? And how, as a coach, how I present those fundamentals to my students and athletes is really important, okay? I've got to teach good movement from the start. I've got to teach good body space. I've got to teach good situational awareness. There's a lot to going into teaching the basic movements of judo. And again, when I say judo, it extends to sambo, any type of sport, jiu-jitsu, any type of combat sport where we grapple, and especially those where we use our jacket and belt to throw each other with. So the fundamentals are really important. And how you teach those movements of judo initially as a coach, stay with that student his entire career, okay? And this leads into another phase of the bread and butter part of judo, which is progression of skill, okay? Don't jump ahead. You know, the alphabet starts with A and ends with Z, and the same with any type of learning. There is a progression of skill from the very start to far more advanced elite levels of application of whatever technique or whatever movement you're doing, okay? And along the way, that progression of skill is part of that progression is molding that technique, that skill, that whatever that move is, molding that technique, making it work best for the person doing it. Okay, each person has to develop his or her own style. And I'm not saying something off the board, crazy type thing. I'm talking about everybody adapts it to make it work for them. Another great coach I had was Morris Allen, world sambo champion. And he told me early on when I started training with him back in the 70s was that make your judo work for you. In other words, make the technique work for you. If you're doing sambo, make the sambo work for you. So you adapt that move, but before you adapt that move, you have to learn the basics of it. You have to learn how to move most efficiently to make that move work, and then how to mold it to your body. Part of learning the basics of that move, we're all different. We all have different body types. I'm a big, tall guy, so I'm going to do my techniques a bit differently than a short, stocky person is going to do them. So when I learn those basics, I'm going to adapt those basics to make them work best for my body. But a good coach can help you with that. A good teammates can help you with that. And that's what a good coach can do. So the basics are important. And as you're learning those basics, and as you start to master the skills of those basics, then you start to mold it, adapt it to fit you, to fit your personality, to fit everything about you, to make it work for you. Now, along that line of bread and butter judo, something that may work for you early in your career may not work for you later in your career due to injuries or something else, or something that doesn't work initially may all of a sudden start to come around later in your career and work. Great example is the great judo champion Shozo Fuji, who was a many-time world champion and from Japan. And he was a Seoinage guy initially, I think, and he did Uchimata. But as he kept competing, injuries piled up. And he kept adapting and changing to different techniques to keep continually winning on a world-class level, staying a world champion. And through the years, he used a variety of different techniques based on what he had to do as his body changed, as the injuries piled up on him. And he kept winning. He was a very successful judo player, one of the greats of all time. That's a case where you have the basics, the bread and butter stuff, and you adapt them to as necessary. So the same thing you may be doing when you're 20 years old will be different than when you're 35 years old. That's just the way we human beings are, and that's the way our bodies work. Basics are important. Fundamentals are important. Elite level, world-class skill, world-class application of any technique or any movement is merely a fulfillment it's the basics done to their full potential. So elite level skill is simply just fundamentals done to their full potential for that person to do them. Okay, when you see people win the Olympics or win sambo world championships or whatever it may be, you're seeing a lot of the same techniques. They're using seoinage type throws. They're using uchimata. They're using foot sweeps. These are things that beginners do just as well. And what these champions have done, what these elite level people have done, in addition to some of the other very spectacular throws, but those were all outgrowths of their basics. All those things you see them do at the elite level, the world-class level, are fundamentally sound judo techniques. A beginner would be doing the same thing, except they're not doing as well as that world champion, are they? Because that world champion has taken years of his or her life to adapt that technique so that he or she could use it to its full potential when he needed to. So that's what bread and butter judo is all about. And so don't let anybody fool you that when they say basics, they're for beginners. Once you get that, then you go on to cool stuff. Don't jump on that. Most of your practice time should be spent on the solid drilling of the fundamentals. You get the fundamentals down. I'm talking about gripping. I'm talking about movement. I'm talking about posture. All these things that make a good technique develop, a good skill develop, and stay this, the course of time. A good technique for you can use with a high percentage of a high rate of success against a variety of opposition. And the success really is something. A good technique is if you can use it when you need to use it with a good rate of success. And that's again, we're talking bread and butter judo here. So that's a little my take on what Bob Corwin taught me many years ago about bread and butter judo and how important it really is.